I thought my mom was a hero, until I found out she'd been stealing thousands of dollars from me and my brother for years. What started as a shocking discovery turned into a family war full of lies, forged documents, and a secret sister I never knew existed. This story is about betrayal, forgiveness, and fighting to reclaim your life when everything you believed falls apart. Watch as I uncover the truth, face my past, and build a new future with the family I never expected. I always believed my mom was a saint. She raised me and my younger brother, Jordan, completely on her own after my dad left when I was 9. We never heard from him again. No calls, no birthday cards, nothing. It was like he vanished off the face of the earth. Mom worked 2 jobs, waitressing during the day and cleaning office buildings at night. She still found time to cook dinner, help with homework, and never once complained. We didn't have much growing up, but we had each other. And that was enough, or so I thought. I'm 27 now, living in a small apartment in St. Louis with my girlfriend, Anna. I work full-time as an electrician, a decent-paying job I landed after trade school. Jordan's a sophomore in college, majoring in computer science, and Mom still lives in our old house back in Kansas City. Life had been pretty uneventful, until a week ago, when I got a call that Mom had fallen and broken her leg. She was in the hospital, and Jordan was stuck at school dealing with midterms. So I took a couple days off work and drove down to check on her. That's when everything started unraveling. Mom was asleep when I arrived at the hospital, so I decided to swing by her house to grab her some clothes and a few things she might want. The place hadn't changed much since I moved out. Same green curtains in the living room, same couch with the sunken-in cushions, same wall of framed family photos. I walked into her bedroom and opened the closet to grab her robe, and that's when I noticed the box. It was tucked up high on the shelf, one of those weathered, metal cash boxes you'd find in a garage sale. I wouldn't have given it a second thought if it hadn't been slightly open. Curiosity got the best of me. Inside were envelopes. Dozens of them. All sealed. All labeled in my mom's handwriting. Each envelope had my name on it. My full name. At first I thought maybe it was something sweet, like letters she'd written to me over the years or memories she'd saved. But the first envelope I opened contained a check. Made out to me. Dated almost 3 years ago. From the state of Missouri. Confused, I opened another. Same thing. Then another. And another. They were all state-issued checks. Refunds, tax credits, stimulus money. All in my name. All never given to me. That's when it hit me. My mom had been cashing checks that were meant for me. For years. I sat on the bed, my hands shaking, staring at a pile of government-issued envelopes. Why? What reason could she possibly have? I drove back to the hospital with the box in my trunk and a pit in my stomach. When she woke up, I didn't beat around the bush. I held up the box and asked, "What is this, Mom?" She looked at it, then at me. Her face went pale. "Where did you find that?" she whispered. "In your closet. You've been cashing checks that belonged to me." "Why?" She sighed and closed her eyes, like she was trying to summon the strength to explain. "It wasn't what you think," she said. But the truth was worse than anything I could have imagined. Mom didn't say anything right away. She just stared at the box in my hands like it was radioactive. When she finally did speak, her voice was small, like a kid caught with their hand in the cookie jar. "I was going to give it back," she said. "I swear I was." I sat down in the chair beside her hospital bed. My heart was pounding in my ears. "You were cashing state checks in my name, Mom. For years. That's fraud. You could go to jail." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I wasn't sure if it was from guilt or fear. "It started when you were 18, she whispered. I opened a bank account in your name. You got a tax refund that year and it got mailed to the house. I thought, just for a little while, I'd borrow it. Things were tight back then." "Mom," I said, trying to stay calm. "I moved out when I was 22. Why are there checks from just last year?" She looked away. "I lost my job," she finally admitted. "The cleaning company laid me off during COVID. And then Jordan started college. The bills kept coming. I didn't qualify for assistance because I still had a car in my name. I was drowning, okay? So you decided to steal from your own son?" I snapped. "Without telling me?" "I didn't steal it," she said quickly. "I was holding on to it. You weren't hurting for money. You have a job, a girlfriend, a nice place. I figured I could catch up and give it back before you ever noticed." I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. Instead, I just sat there, stunned. "You had no right," I said. "No matter how bad things got." She didn't answer. After a long silence, I told her I was taking the box. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet, but I needed time to think. She didn't argue. Back in my car, I went through every envelope. Some of the checks were small, $200 here, $350 there, but others were much bigger. A $1,200 stimulus check. 2 separate $2,000 state education grants that I never even knew I'd been eligible for. And there were notes. She'd kept track of some of it in a little notepad. Total amount taken, $14,740. 14,000. That's money I could have used to pay off debt, fix my truck, maybe even propose to Anna. I called my girlfriend that night and told her everything. She listened without interrupting. When I finally finished, she said, "So what are you going to do?" I didn't have an answer. The next morning, Jordan called. He sounded stressed. "Hey, I talked to Mom. She said you were accusing her of stealing or something? What's going on?" I didn't want to drag him into it, but I knew I had to be honest. I told him about the box, the checks, the fake account. Everything. He went quiet for a moment. Then he said something that hit me like a brick. "Dude, I think she did the same thing to me." "What?" "Last year, I was supposed to get a refund from the FAFSA grant. A couple $100, just leftover student aid. It never showed up. I asked her about it, and she said the school must have screwed up. But now..." He trailed off, and we both sat in silence. So it wasn't just me. She was taking money from both of us. Later that day, I called the bank. Posed as myself. Asked if I had an account under my name at any of their branches. The lady on the phone found 2 accounts. One was the checking account I used every day. The other had been opened 8 years ago. Under my name. With a P.O. box for the address. I asked for the balance. It had less than $100 in it. After I got off the phone with the bank, I just sat there in my truck outside the hospital, staring into nothing. The second account in my name had a P.O. box I'd never seen before. I googled it. It was across town from my mom's house. When I looked up the full address linked to the P.O. box on a background search site, I saw something that made my stomach drop. The name tied to that mailing address wasn't mine. It was Sharon Keller, my mother's maiden name. She didn't even bother to hide it properly. I drove straight to the post office listed with the box. I knew they wouldn't tell me much, but I showed them my ID and said I needed to confirm if someone had opened a box in my name. The clerk hesitated but eventually nodded. "Yeah, it was opened under your name, but someone else is listed as the authorized user, Sharon Keller." I thanked them and left, my heart racing. I felt like a stranger in my own life. My identity had been used like a tool. For what? For survival? Or because she thought she could get away with it? That night, I called Jordan again and told him everything. He sounded rattled. "This is messed up, man," he said. "Like criminal." "I know. What are you gonna do?" "I don't know," I told him honestly. "I want to confront her again. But I think I might need to talk to a lawyer." There was silence on the line. Then Jordan asked something I hadn't even considered. "What if this goes deeper?" I didn't understand at first. "Like what?" He cleared his throat. "When I was 16, Mom made me get a job at that local grocery store, remember? I worked there all summer. At the end of it, she told me I hadn't made enough to file taxes. Said I didn't need to worry about it. So, I just checked my IRS account. Someone did file taxes in my name that year. And the refund went to a bank I don't recognize." My stomach turned. "You're kidding." "I'm serious. And there are other years too. Smaller refunds. But it's there." It wasn't just a one-time thing. It wasn't even just the pandemic. This had been going on for almost a decade. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay awake, turning over every memory of Mom from the last 10 years. When I asked about money, every time she made me feel guilty for not helping out more, every time she smiled and said she had everything under control. The next morning, I drove to the hospital with one purpose, to get the whole truth. When I walked into her room, she was sitting up, eating some bland hospital eggs. She looked surprised to see me. "Hi, sweetheart." I didn't sit down. "I went to the post office," I said. "I know about the P.O. box. I talked to the bank. I talked to Jordan. I know you filed taxes in his name. I know about the refund you took from me in 2021. I know everything, Mom." She stared at me, her face slowly crumpling. Tears filled her eyes. "I didn't know what else to do." "That's not good enough," I said. "You stole from both your sons. You used our identities. That's fraud, and it's not just something you sweep under the rug." "I never meant to hurt you," she whispered. "You were both doing okay. I just thought." "No," I cut her off. "You decided we were okay. You took our choice away. You took our trust." She started sobbing then, messy and loud, covering her face with her hands. But I didn't feel sorry for her, not this time. I left the hospital room without saying another word. Later that night, Anna came home from work and found me at the kitchen table surrounded by papers, bank printouts, envelopes, ID documents. "You're really going to do it, aren't you?" she asked. I nodded. "I'm filing a police report." She sat down beside me and grabbed my hand. "I know it hurts. But you're doing the right thing." And I was doing the right thing. But I had no idea what kind of storm I was about to unleash. Filing the police report was one of the hardest things I've ever done. The officer at the station looked at me like I was insane when I said I was reporting my own mother for identity theft. I gave them everything: copies of the checks, the account numbers, the post office confirmation, the notes from the mailbox. "Do you have any idea how long this has been going on?" the officer asked. "Almost 10 years. I replied. "Maybe more." He let out a low whistle. "That's not small-time stuff. This could be felony level." I nodded, but hearing it out loud still made me feel sick. "She's my mom," I said quietly. "I don't want to destroy her life. I want her to face the consequences." They told me it might take a while. There were protocols. Investigations. A lot of waiting. I left the station with a pit in my stomach, but a small part of me, deep down, felt relief. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. I'd been wronged. And I was finally doing something about it. But then, things got worse. Much worse. It started with a phone call from Jordan. "Hey, man," he said, sounding nervous. "Mom just called me." "What did she say?" "She knows you filed the report." "What? How?" "I don't know, maybe the hospital got wind of it somehow. Or maybe she guessed. But she's pissed, dude. Like, full meltdown. She said she's going to expose you for being a greedy, ungrateful son." I laughed bitterly. "Of course she did. She also said something about having proof that you owe her money," he added, sounding uncertain. "That she kept records." My stomach sank. I had no idea what she meant, but I had a feeling I was about to find out. 3 days later, I got a letter in the mail. It was from a lawyer. Inside was a copy of a personal loan agreement I had supposedly signed when I was 19. It claimed that my mom had lent me $12,000 for educational purposes, and that I agreed to repay it in full upon employment. Only, I'd never signed anything like that. The signature wasn't even close to mine. Attached was a typed repayment record, showing fake dates where I had supposedly paid back small amounts. It looked official. Too official. She was trying to flip the story, to make it look like I owed her. I showed it to Anna, who immediately said, "This is fake. You never borrowed money from her. I was with you back then. You paid your own way through trade school." I nodded, jaw tight. "She's trying to scare me." I sent the document to the officer assigned to my case, who promised they'd add it to the file. He also mentioned they were going to subpoena bank records and pull security footage from the post office where she cashed the checks. The wheels of justice were turning. But I didn't expect what happened next. One evening, around 9 p.m., someone knocked on our door. Anna was in the shower, so I answered it, expecting it to be our neighbor or maybe a food delivery mistake. It wasn't. It was my uncle, Mom's brother, who I hadn't seen in years. "Can we talk?" he said, looking serious. Yeah, sure. Come in." He stepped inside, sat down at the kitchen table like he'd done it 100 times before, and looked at me. "She told me everything," he said. I didn't reply. "She's not okay, man. She's not well. You know she's been in and out of therapy since your dad left, right?" I frowned. "She never told me that." He rubbed his hands together. "She had a breakdown when you were a kid. Locked herself in the bathroom for hours. Jordan was still in diapers. I came over and broke the door down. We got her help, but she stopped going. She's always been good at hiding when she's spiraling." "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. He sighed. "Because I think she's having another episode. And if you push this, if you take her to court, if she gets arrested, I'm not sure she's going to survive it." I felt like someone had poured cold water over me. "She stole from me," I said. "From Jordan. Lied. Falsified documents. That's not a breakdown. That's a crime. I'm not saying you're wrong," he said gently. "I'm just saying, maybe there's more to this than you know." And then he dropped a bomb I wasn't ready for. "She did the same thing to your dad. She did the same thing to your dad." Those words echoed in my ears long after my uncle said them. I just stared at him like he was speaking a different language. "What do you mean?" I finally asked. He sighed like he'd been holding this in for years. "Back when you were a kid, your dad got a tax return, pretty decent one too. He worked construction, and that year, he'd gotten laid off and qualified for a bunch of credits. Over $5,000, I think. But the check never showed. And Mom took it. She denied it, of course," my uncle said, nodding. "Said she never saw it. But the tension after that, it was like watching a dam about to burst. Your dad never trusted her again. That's when the real fighting started. I'm pretty sure that's what finally made him leave." I shook my head slowly. "She always told us he just bailed. That he abandoned us. She wanted to protect her image," he said. "You were too young to understand what was going on." My stomach twisted. So not only did she take money from me and Jordan, she'd done it to Dad too. and then spent years painting herself as the victim of his supposed abandonment. That night, I dug through an old plastic bin in the back of my closet where I'd kept childhood papers, school awards, random stuff from the house. At the very bottom, I found something I hadn't looked at in years, a crumpled letter in a plain white envelope, addressed to me in rough, blocky handwriting. I remembered getting it when I was maybe 10. It was from my dad. Back then, Mom told me not to read it. Said he only wrote because he wanted to feel better about walking away. Being a dumb kid, I believed her and shoved it in the box, never opening it. But now I did. The letter was short. Sloppy handwriting. A couple misspelled words. But it said everything. Hey buddy. I hope you're doing good. I miss you every day. I didn't want to go, but your mom made it impossible. She took money that wasn't hers and lied about it. I couldn't stay. I hope one day you understand. I love you more than you'll ever know. Dad. I sat on the floor, holding that paper, feeling like the world had flipped upside down. All those years I'd hated him. Believed he was a deadbeat who left without a word. But he tried. He tried to reach out. And she made sure I never listened. I didn't even realize I was crying until Anna came into the room and sat down beside me. I handed her the letter. She read it silently and squeezed my hand. You were lied to your whole life, she whispered. And you're finally seeing the truth. I nodded. It hurts like hell. I decided to track my dad down. It took me 3 days, a few online databases, and some help from an old buddy who worked in real estate. But I found him, living in Wichita, Kansas, under a new name. He'd remarried. No kids. Working at a hardware store. I stared at the contact info for a long time before finally dialing the number. It rang 3 times. Then a gravelly voice answered. Hello? Hi, is this Mark Talley? Pause. Yeah, who's this? I swallowed hard. It's your son. It's Ryan. Silence. Then a shaky breath. Ryan? Yeah, I said. I just read your letter. The one you sent me when I was 10. I'm sorry it took me this long. There was a long pause. Then he said, I never thought I'd hear your voice again. That conversation changed everything. Reconnecting with my dad was like peeling off a scab I didn't know was still there. We talked for over 2 hours that night. At first, it was awkward, both of us tripping over words, unsure of what to say after nearly 2 decades. But once the ice broke, it all came pouring out. He told me about how he stuck around as long as he could, even after she drained his tax return and denied it. How she'd started accusing him of things, cheating, stealing, neglect. It was like she couldn't stop twisting the truth, he said. And I couldn't keep living in that storm. I asked him why he never fought for custody, never came back for me in Jordan. His voice cracked. I tried. I really did. But your mom made it hell. She told the court I was abusive. That I drank. None of it was true. But I didn't have the money to fight it. I figured, you were better off without me. Hearing that broke me. Everything I believed about my childhood, about her, was built on lies. Manipulated stories. Half-truths and fake signatures. It was like my entire identity had been forged in someone else's image. But there was still one thing that didn't sit right with me. If she'd lied about all that, what else was she hiding? A few days later, the police finally called. They were officially opening a criminal investigation. The forged tax returns and identity theft across multiple years, combined with evidence from both me and Jordan, were enough to move forward. They planned to interview her once she was released from the hospital. I didn't know whether to feel vindicated or terrified. But the next day, something happened that threw gasoline on the fire. Jordan called me again, his voice tense. Dude, check this out. I pulled my credit report like you suggested. Yeah? Anything weird? You could say that. He texted me a screenshot. 3 credit cards opened under his name, all with balances over $1,000. One had been maxed out for nearly 2 years. He never opened a single one of them. Holy sh*t. I muttered. It was happening again. She didn't just take tax refunds, she'd used his identity to open credit accounts too. She was digging us both into debt without saying a word. That changed everything. We went back to the police with the new documents, and they added financial fraud and credit card theft to the list. The case was getting bigger and nastier. I tried calling Mom to confront her again, but she wouldn't pick up. Instead, I got a voicemail from her lawyer. I advise you to cease all contact with my client. Any further accusations or harassment will be considered defamation and obstruction of due process. She had officially turned this into a war. And the worst part? The next day, I woke up to a barrage of Facebook notifications. She'd posted a massive public rant, accusing me of trying to steal her house, of ruining the family, of being a manipulated puppet for my father, who, in her words, abandoned his children and poisoned them against their loving mother. She even uploaded screenshots of that fake loan agreement and claimed I owed her thousands. People started commenting, old neighbors, distant cousins, even people from church. Some took her side. Some didn't. But the damage was done. The whole family knew. And now, everyone had an opinion. That's when Anna suggested we take the final step. You need to protect yourself, she said. Go to a lawyer. Get ahead of this. Before she burns everything down. So we did. And that's when we uncovered the final betrayal. The lawyer ran a full public records search on my name. He looked up the fake bank accounts, the credit inquiries, everything tied to the P.O. box. Then he leaned back in his chair and said, You might want to sit down for this. I braced myself. Your mom also took out a Parent Plus loan in your name, for $28,000. My stomach dropped. What? I never went to a 4-year college. I went to trade school. I never needed student loans. He nodded slowly. Yeah. But she used your information to claim she was helping pay for a dependent's education. That's how Plus loans work. And it's been accruing interest for years. I was stunned. Breathless. All this time, while I was working double shifts and budgeting every dollar, she was racking up debt in my name. That wasn't just betrayal. That was life-ruining. And she still had no intention of stopping. I wish I could say the court case brought me closure. That it helped me sleep at night, or that it made everything feel worth it. But the truth? It ripped our family apart. My lawyer helped me file an identity theft report with the Department of Education to dispute the $28,000 loan, but they told me it could take months to clear, if it could be cleared. Meanwhile, interest kept ticking up like a time bomb. Mom never apologized. Never reached out. Instead, she lawyered up and went full scorched earth. Claimed I was trying to steal her retirement. Said Jordan and I were brainwashed by our long-lost father, and worst of all, she doubled down on the fake loan documents. She wanted this to go to trial. And it did. The first court hearing felt surreal. Jordan came with me. Anna too. We sat on one side of the courtroom, while Mom, our mother, sat on the other, next to a lawyer who looked like he specialized in messy divorces and bankruptcies. She barely looked at us. When the judge asked if we wanted to attempt mediation first, her lawyer said, My client is not willing to admit to any wrongdoing. So that was that. We proceeded. Over the next 2 months, our lawyers battled it out. We submitted everything: bank statements, forged documents, witness statements, even the post office records showing she accessed that P.O. box regularly. Jordan submitted his credit report and proof of accounts he never opened. We even had the IRS confirm multiple years of tax returns filed fraudulently. But Mom's lawyer hit back hard. They claimed I'd given her verbal permission to handle my finances during trade school, and that she'd simply misunderstood the scope of that permission. They tried to say I was punishing her for being a single mother. They even dug up an old Facebook post from when I was 20, thanking her for always taking care of me, and used it as supposed evidence that I had entrusted her fully. It was exhausting. Every hearing felt like a funeral for the version of my mom I thought I knew. But then, the real shock came. During discovery, my lawyer got access to the full account history of the fake bank account she'd opened under my name. He pulled me aside and showed me a statement. There, in black and white, were 2 names listed under that account. Mine, and another dependent. But it wasn't Jordan. It was a name I didn't recognize, Emily Keller. Who the hell is that? I asked. He looked up from the paperwork. That's what we're about to find out. Turns out, Emily Keller was born in 2007. In Kansas City. Listed mother? Sharon Keller. My mom. I couldn't breathe. Are you saying she has another kid? He nodded slowly. Looks like it. One she never told you about. My mind raced. A half-sister? Where had she been all these years? Why keep her a secret? Was she in foster care? Living with someone else? We did some digging. Emily was in state custody. Had been for years. Placed into foster care at age 8 after multiple reports of neglect and truancy. Her records were sealed, but the timeline matched. And the kicker? Some of the money my mom stole using my name, stimulus checks, tax refunds, had also been used to falsely claim Emily as a dependent, even after she was removed from her custody. My mom had kept up the lie for years, pretending to care for a daughter she hadn't seen in almost a decade, just to keep milking the system. I felt sick. Disgusted. When we brought this evidence into court, it was like watching the judge's entire demeanor change. What had once looked like a messy family squabble turned into something far more serious. Fraud. Neglect. System abuse. Identity theft. Forgery. By the end of it, Mom's lawyer looked like he wanted to crawl under the desk. And when the final ruling came down, the judge didn't hold back. She was ordered to pay restitution, over $40,000 combined to Jordan and me. Her accounts were frozen. She was reported to the Department of Education and the IRS for further investigation, and criminal charges were officially referred to the state. But none of that felt like a victory. Because after all of it, the lies, the secrets, the betrayal, she still didn't look at me. Not once. After court let out, Jordan and I stood on the sidewalk stunned. "You okay?" he asked. "No," I said. "But I think I will be." A few weeks later, I got a call from a social worker. It was about Emily. When the social worker called, I didn't recognize the number. I almost let it go to voicemail. But something told me to answer. "Is this Ryan Talley?" "Yeah, this is him. My name is Denise. I'm a caseworker with Jackson County Family Services. I'm calling about a minor named Emily Keller. It's regarding a potential familial placement." I froze. Emily Keller. I hadn't heard that name since the courtroom bombshell. I didn't even know she existed until a few weeks ago," I said. "She's my half-sister, right?" "That's correct. Sharon Keller is listed as her biological mother. You're listed as a potential sibling match through state records." My heart pounded. "What do you mean by placement?" "She's 17. She's been in the system since she was 8. Multiple foster homes, no stable guardians. She's currently in a transitional group facility. We try to find kinship placements when possible before they age out. Emily's case is difficult. But when your name came up, she agreed to meet with you." I didn't know what to say. My world had already been flipped upside down. I had no clue how to be a brother to someone I didn't even know existed. But somehow, the words came out. "Yeah," I said. "I'll meet her." We set it up for the following Saturday. Anna came with me for moral support, though she waited outside while I went into the center. The place looked more like a juvenile detention facility than a home. Faded walls. Cold furniture. That sterile smell of disinfectant and loneliness. Emily was sitting in a room at the end of the hallway, legs crossed, hoodie pulled over her head. When I walked in, she looked up, her eyes suspicious. "You're Ryan?" "Yeah. That's me." She shrugged. "Didn't expect you to show." "I almost didn't," I admitted. "I didn't know you existed until a few weeks ago. That makes 2 of us." There was an awkward pause. She was sharp-eyed, guarded, and way too mature for 17. "I guess. I just wanted to meet you," I said. "I've been trying to figure out what's true and what's not, and when I found out I had a sister..." She snorted. "Half-sister?" "Yeah," I said. "Half." Another pause. Then she said, "She ever tell you about me?" "No. Nothing. I thought it was just me and Jordan. She told my foster mom once that she gave me up because she couldn't afford 3 kids," Emily said, picking at a thread on her sleeve. "But that's bull. I remember her. I remember being hungry all the time. I remember her screaming at the TV. Leaving me home alone for hours." I felt something tighten in my chest. "I'm sorry." She shrugged. "Not your fault." We sat in silence for a while. Then she said something I didn't expect. "You gonna take me?" I blinked. "What?" She looked me dead in the eye. "That lady said you might take me in. You gonna? Or is this just a meet and itch?" I don't know," I admitted. "I just found out you exist. I live in St. Louis. I'm not a parent." "I'm not." "Don't bother," she said, cutting me off. "I get it. Nobody wants a messed up teenager. Just thought I'd ask." She stood up and turned away like the conversation was over. But something in me snapped. I saw myself at 17, working long hours, scraping by, never knowing that somewhere out there, I had a sister who needed help. "Wait," I said. I didn't say no. She stopped but didn't turn around. I said, "I don't know yet. But I want to get to know you first. Can we start there?" She shrugged again but didn't leave the room. That was enough for me. Over the next few weeks, I visited her every Saturday. Brought books. Talked about music. Even met with her caseworker a few times. Slowly, the ice between us started to melt. And just when things were starting to feel hopeful, Mom reappeared. Not in person, but through a legal letter. She was suing me for defamation, claiming I destroyed her name and future with baseless lies and false accusations of fraud. Her attorney was demanding a public retraction, damages for emotional distress, and payment for her legal losses from our court case. It was complete nonsense. But she wasn't done yet. Attached to the letter was a sworn affidavit, supposedly from Emily, stating that I had pressured her into meeting me, that I had coached her into making false statements about our mom, and that I was manipulating her for revenge. Only it wasn't her signature. And I had texts, call logs, and video messages to prove it. Mom was forging her daughter's name now, trying to weaponize a girl she abandoned, just to ruin the one person who exposed her. I took it all to my lawyer. I want a restraining order, I said. And I want her gone for good. The day the restraining order was granted, I felt like I could breathe for the first time in months. The judge didn't even hesitate. Once we showed the forged affidavit, the history of financial abuse, and the active fraud investigations, she signed off on a no-contact order immediately. My mom was legally barred from contacting me, Jordan, or Emily. She was blocked from showing up at our homes, our jobs, even our social media. It should have felt like a win. But it just made everything more real. My mother, the woman who raised me, who I once thought was the strongest person I knew, was gone. And not just physically. She had shattered something that could never be put back together. A week after that hearing, I stood in front of the family court judge again. But this time, for a different reason. Emily had no other relatives. No guardians. No one left to speak for her. So I did. I petitioned for kinship guardianship, legal custody. Anna and I had talked about it for hours, late into the night, weighing the risks. We didn't know what we were doing. We weren't parents. We barely had room in our apartment. But I couldn't stomach the idea of Emily aging out of the system alone. She deserved better than what Mom gave us. At the hearing, Emily sat beside me, nervous but calm. She didn't say much, just nodded when the judge asked if she was comfortable with me being her guardian. Afterward, in the hallway, she looked at me and said, "Don't screw this up." I grinned. "I'll try my best." The next few weeks were chaos. We had to rearrange the apartment, turn the spare room into her space, file a mountain of paperwork, and take parenting classes just to satisfy the state. But slowly, we settled into something like a routine. Emily wasn't easy. She had a temper, major trust issues, and a serious habit of disappearing into her own head. But I saw pieces of myself in her. Pieces I didn't even know were still there. Some nights, she'd sit at the kitchen table long after dinner, just sketching in a notebook. She didn't say much, but it was her way of processing. Other nights, she'd ask me weird questions out of nowhere. "Do you think she ever loved me?" "I don't know," I'd answer honestly. "She didn't know how to love right. But I don't think that means you're unlovable." She'd nod, then go quiet again. One night, after a movie, she asked me something that broke my heart. "If you'd known about me back then, would you have come for me?" I looked her straight in the eye. "Every damn time." We were finally settling into something normal. But then, of course, came the knock at the door. It was 6:42 p.m. on a Thursday. I'll never forget that time. Anna was cooking, Emily was upstairs playing music way too loud, and I was going through mail at the kitchen table. 3 knocks. Firm. Slow. I opened the door. A woman stood there, mid-40s, short blonde hair, weathered face. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. "You don't know me," she said. "But I knew your mom. We were friends. A long time ago." I didn't respond. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small plastic folder. "I think you need to see this," she said. "I've been holding onto it for a long time." I wasn't sure if I should come forward. But with everything that's happened. She trailed off and handed it to me. Inside was a stack of handwritten letters. Dozens of them. All from my dad. They had never been sent. Each one was addressed to me or Jordan, dated from the years after he left. Some were returned to sender unopened. Others had never been mailed at all. Each one talked about how much he missed us. How he was trying to fight for custody. How he kept getting blocked. How Mom was lying about everything. There was even one letter where he mentioned Emily. Said he knew she wasn't his, but he worried for her anyway. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. "Your mom gave them to me years ago," the woman said. "Said she didn't want them in the house. I should have come sooner. I'm sorry." She turned and walked away before I could even respond. I stood there, folder in hand, feeling the weight of it all. She hadn't just lied. She stole our father from us. On purpose. Later that night, I sat down with Emily and showed her the letters. She read a few, then closed the folder slowly. "I used to wish I had a real brother," she said quietly. "Like one who'd show up. Even just once." "You do now," I said. And for the first time since we met, she smiled like she actually believed it. The months that followed were some of the hardest, and yet most hopeful, times of my life. Emily settled into our apartment. Anna and I became a makeshift family of 4, juggling work, school, and therapy appointments. It wasn't easy, but it was real. For the first time, I felt like we were building something honest. I kept in touch with Dad. We talked weekly now. He shared stories I'd never heard, about his dreams, his regrets, and how much he'd always wanted to protect us from Mom's lies. One day, out of the blue, he sent me a letter. Handwritten. He'd taken up woodworking and had made something for me and Emily. A small wooden box, hand-carved with our initials on top. Inside, he tucked a note. "For when the world feels heavy. Remember, family is more than blood. It's who shows up when it counts." I held that box for hours before showing it to Emily. She traced the carving with her finger. Maybe we're not so broken after all, she said. And I realized she was right. We weren't just survivors of a messed up past. We were a family. Messy, imperfect, but ours.